The gunshot ripped through the silent prairie as Amelia Anderson crumpled to the ground. Her blood seeping into the dusty Oklahoma soil. The outlaws who had ambushed her stagecoach were already disappearing over the horizon with their stolen bounty, leaving her to die alone in the unforgiving wilderness of 1875. The sun beat down mercilessly on the open plains surrounding Oklahoma City. Amelia's vision blurred as she tried to focus on the clouds drifting overhead, her breathing shallow and ragged. The stagecoach driver and her fellow passengers lay dead several yards away, their bodies already attracting flies in the summer heat. She had played dead when the outlaws approached, which had saved her life at least temporarily. 24 years old and now bleeding from a bullet wound in her side, Amelia had nothing but the torn remains of her once fine traveling dress and the small derringer hidden in her boot. The outlaws had taken everything else, her trunk containing all her worldly possessions, the money sewn into the lining of her coat, and the locket containing the last picture of her parents. She had been on her way to Oklahoma City to take a position as a schoolteacher, a fresh start after leaving behind the painful memories of Boston, where she had lost her parents to influenza last winter. Now, as the sun climbed higher in the sky, she wondered if she would ever reach her destination at all. Miles away, Tyler Wyatt rode along the worn trail leading back to his ranch. At 30 years old, he'd been working this land for nearly a decade after returning from fighting in the Civil War. His cattle ranch was modest but growing, situated 10 miles outside Oklahoma City. With his weathered Stetson pulled low to shield his eyes from the sun and his trusty Winchester rifle strapped to his saddle, he embodied everything a frontier man should be. Tyler's horse, a sturdy buckskin named Copper, suddenly lifted his head and snorted, ears pricked forward. "What is it, boy?" Tyler patted the horse's neck, following the animal's gaze toward the horizon. In the distance, a plume of dust caught his eye. Not the natural swirl of a dust devil, but the remnants of rapid movement riders pushing their horses hard. Tyler frowned. The stagecoach wasn't due through this route for another day, and ordinary travelers wouldn't kick up that much dust. Something wasn't right. He nudged Copper into a trot, heading toward the trail where the dust was settling. Years of living in the territory had taught him to trust his instincts, and right now they were telling him trouble lay ahead. As he approached the main trail, the scene that greeted him confirmed his suspicions. The stagecoach lay on its side, one wheel spinning lazily in the breeze. Bodies were scattered around it like discarded ragdolls. Tyler dismounted quickly, rifle in hand, scanning the area for any sign of danger before approaching the wreckage. The driver had been shot point-blank in the chest. A male passenger lay face down in the dirt, his pockets turned inside out. Tyler checked each body, finding no signs of life until a faint moan caught his attention. "Hello," he called, moving cautiously toward the sound. "Anyone alive out here?" Behind a clump of sagebrush, partially hidden from the main trail, lay a young woman. Her chestnut hair had come loose from its pins, and the bodice of her blue traveling dress was soaked with blood, but her chest rose and fell with shallow breaths. "Madam, can you hear me?" Tyler knelt beside her, setting his rifle within reach. Amelia's eyes fluttered open at the sound of his voice, revealing pain-filled hazel depths. "Who?" she managed, her voice barely audible. "Tyler Wyatt. I have a ranch nearby." He quickly assessed her wound. The bullet had entered her side, but he couldn't tell how deep it went without examining her properly. "I need to get you help. Can you tell me your name?" "Amelia," she whispered, wincing as she tried to move. "Amelia Anderson." "Well, Miss Anderson, you're lucky I happened by. We need to get you somewhere safe so I can tend to that wound." He looked around at the desolate landscape. The nearest town was hours away, and she wouldn't survive the journey in her condition. "I'm going to take you to my ranch. It's closer than Oklahoma City." Fear flashed in her eyes. "The outlaws? They're long gone," Tyler assured her. "Probably halfway to Indian Territory by now." He hesitated, then added, "I'm sorry about the others." A tear slipped down Amelia's dirt-streaked cheek. "They killed everyone. I played dead." "Smart thinking. That's what kept you alive." Tyler removed his bandana and pressed it against her wound. "This is going to hurt, but I need to get you on my horse." Amelia nodded weakly, bracing herself. When Tyler lifted her, the pain tore through her body like fire, and she bit her lip to keep from screaming. He worked quickly, securing her on copper before mounting behind her. With one arm around her waist to hold her steady, he turned the horse toward his ranch. "Stay with me, Miss Anderson," he murmured as her head lolled against his chest. "Just stay with me." The ride to Tyler's ranch seemed endless to Amelia, who drifted in and out of consciousness. Each jolt of the horse sent fresh waves of agony through her body, but Tyler's strong arm kept her from falling. She focused on his steady heartbeat against her back, using it as an anchor to stay conscious. When they finally arrived at the ranch, she was barely aware of being carried into a modest but clean cabin and laid on a bed. The room spun around her as Tyler moved quickly, gathering supplies. "Miss Anderson, I need to remove that bullet," he explained, his voice calm but urgent. "I've sent my ranch hand for the doctor, but he's in Oklahoma City. It'll be hours before he gets here, and you can't wait that long." Amelia looked up into his face, strong-jawed, with earnest blue eyes that held her gaze steadily. She didn't know this man, but something in those eyes made her trust him. "Do what you must," she whispered. Tyler nodded and reached for a bottle of whiskey. "Drink this, it'll help with the pain." The liquor burned her throat, but she welcomed the spreading warmth that followed. As Tyler prepared to remove the bullet, she clutched the sheets and turned her face away. "Talk to me," she pleaded, needing a distraction from what was coming. "Tell me something, anything." Tyler's hands paused in their work. "Well, I've been ranching here for 8 years now. Came out west after the war ended. Started with just 10 head of cattle and this small piece of land. Now I've got nearly 200 head and 3 ranch hands working for me." As he spoke, he carefully cut away the blood-soaked fabric of her dress to expose the wound. "I'm going to clean this now." "It'll sting." Amelia gasped as the alcohol hit the open wound, her fingers digging into the mattress. "Keep talking," she gritted out. "My sister lives in St. Louis with her husband. She writes regularly, telling me I should come back east, find myself a wife." He prepared his tools, heating the blade of his knife in the flame of an oil lamp. "Says a man shouldn't live alone out here." "Why haven't you?" Amelia asked, desperate to focus on anything but the impending pain. Tyler's eyes met hers briefly. "Never found a reason compelling enough to leave this land." He held up the knife. "This is going to hurt something fierce. Bite down on this." He placed a folded leather belt between her teeth, and Amelia clenched it tightly, nodding for him to proceed. When the hot blade touched her flesh, the pain was so intense that the world went white. Her scream was muffled by the leather as Tyler worked quickly, probing for the bullet. "Got it," he announced after what seemed an eternity. He dropped the bloody slug into a bowl and immediately pressed a clean cloth to the wound. "You're doing great, Miss Anderson. The worst part's over." Tears streamed down Amelia's face as she spat out the belt. "I hope you're right," she gasped. Tyler worked methodically to clean and bandage the wound, his hands sure and gentle. "The bullet didn't hit anything vital, but you've lost a lot of blood. You need to rest." Amelia's eyelids grew heavy as exhaustion overtook her. The combination of blood loss, whiskey, and relief from having the bullet removed was pulling her toward unconsciousness. "Thank you," she murmured as darkness closed in. "You saved my life." Tyler pulled a chair up beside the bed, settling in to watch over her through the night. "Rest now. You're safe here." As Amelia slipped into sleep, Tyler studied her face. Even pale and drawn with pain, she was beautiful, delicate features framed by that mass of chestnut hair now spread across his pillow. He wondered what had brought her to Oklahoma territory alone, what hopes and dreams had been in her heart before the outlaws attacked. He made a silent vow to see her safely recovered, no matter what it took. Outside, the sun set over the prairie, painting the sky in brilliant oranges and reds. Another day was ending in the vast, untamed West, a land of danger and beauty, cruelty and kindness. And in a small ranch house, a wounded woman slept while a cowboy kept watch, both their lives irrevocably changed by the brutal whims of fate. When Amelia awoke, sunlight was streaming through the window. For a moment, she was disoriented, the unfamiliar room spinning slightly as she tried to sit up. Pain immediately lanced through her side, and she fell back with a gasp. "Careful now," came a deep voice from the doorway. "You don't want to tear those stitches." Tyler stood there holding a tray with a steaming mug and a bowl. His hair was damp as if he'd just washed and he'd changed into a clean shirt. "How long have I been asleep?" Amelia asked, her throat dry and scratchy. "Nearly a full day." He approached the bed and set the tray on a small table. "The doctor came by late last night, said I did a decent job with the bullet, but he cleaned the wound properly and gave you something for infection. You were pretty out of it." Amelia had no memory of a doctor's visit, which concerned her. "I don't remember. You had a fever." Tyler helped her to sit up, arranging pillows behind her back. "Doc says you're past the worst of it, but you need to rest and regain your strength." Now fully awake, Amelia became acutely aware of her situation. She was in a stranger's bed, wearing what appeared to be one of his shirts, with no idea what had happened to her clothes or her few remaining possessions. As if reading her mind, Tyler said, "Mrs. Callahan, she helps around the ranch. Sometimes she came by and helped get you cleaned up and changed. Your dress was ruined, but she salvaged what she could of your other things." He nodded toward a small bundle on a chair. There wasn't much the Outlaws didn't take. Amelia felt a surge of gratitude for this consideration. "Thank you for everything." Tyler merely nodded, seeming uncomfortable with her thanks. "I brought you some broth and tea. Think you can manage? I'll try." She accepted the mug he offered, her hands shaking slightly. The warm broth was simple but delicious, and she hadn't realized how hungry she was until the first sip touched her lips. While she ate, Tyler pulled up a chair beside the bed. "If you're feeling up to it, I'd like to know what happened out there. Might help us figure out who did this." Amelia lowered the mug, memories of the attack flooding back. "We were a few hours out from Oklahoma City when they came. 6 men, bandanas covering their faces, guns drawn." She closed her eyes, seeing it all again. "They stopped the coach, ordered everyone out. The driver tried to reach for his shotgun, but they shot him before he could even touch it." Tyler's jaw tightened. "Go on." "They made us all line up. There was a banker from St. Louis, a salesman, and me. They took our valuables, watches, money, jewelry. The banker protested when they took his satchel, said there were important papers." Her voice faltered. "They shot him in the face, just like that. The salesman tried to run, and they shot him in the back. And you," I gave them everything I had, my purse, my locket. "But one of them, the leader, I think, he kept looking at me. Said maybe they should take more than just valuables. Another one said they didn't have time, that a patrol might be coming through." She shivered despite the warm room. "They argued. The leader grabbed my arm and I fought back. That's when he shot me." Tyler's hand clenched into a fist on his knee. "Did you see any of their faces? Anything that might identify them?" Amelia thought hard. The leader had a scar on his hand across the knuckles, and one of them called another Jenks before being told to shut up. Their horses were dark, except for the leader's. His was a palomino with a white blaze. Tyler nodded slowly. "That might be enough. There's a gang that's been hitting stagecoaches between here and Fort Smith. Sounds like their work." "Will you report it to the law?" Amelia asked. "Already did." "Marshal Benton rode out yesterday after the doctor left. He's a good man, won't let this go." Amelia finished her broth, feeling stronger with food in her stomach. "I need to get to Oklahoma City. I'm expected at the school. They'll think I've abandoned the position." "Miss Anderson," Tyler said gently, "you're in no condition to travel, much less teach. The doctor said you need at least 2 weeks of bed rest before even thinking about moving around much." "But my position," I sent word with the doctor. "The school board knows what happened and that you're recovering here. They're holding the position for you." Relief washed over her. "That's very kind of them, and of you to think of it." Tyler shrugged. "Seemed the practical thing to do." He stood and took the empty mug from her. "You should rest more. I'll bring you something more substantial to eat later." As he turned to leave, Amelia called after him, "Mr. Wyatt, where will you sleep since I've taken your bed?" He glanced back with a half smile. "Don't worry about me. I've got a comfortable enough pallet in the main room." After he left, Amelia sank back against the pillows, taking in her surroundings. The room was simply furnished but neat, with a chest of drawers, a small desk beneath the window, and a hook on the wall where a gun belt hung within easy reach. A bookshelf held a surprising number of volumes history, some novels and practical guides to ranching and animal husbandry. Despite her ordeal and the pain in her side, she felt oddly safe here. Tyler Wyatt was a stranger, but he had saved her life and shown nothing but kindness and respect. In the dangerous frontier where she found herself, such decency was a rare and precious thing. Over the next few days, Amelia's strength gradually returned. Tyler was often busy with ranch work, but he checked on her frequently, bringing meals and fresh water. Mrs. Callahan, a motherly woman in her 50s from a neighboring homestead, came by daily to help Amelia wash and change the bandages. On the fourth day, Amelia insisted on getting out of bed. With Mrs. Callahan's help, she made it to a chair by the window, where she sat watching the activity of the ranch Tyler and his hands moving cattle from one pasture to another, mending fences and tending to the horses. "He's a good man, that Tyler Wyatt," Mrs. Callahan remarked as she changed the sheets on the bed. "Came out here with nothing but determination after the war, never complains, always willing to help a neighbor." "He seems very capable," Amelia agreed, watching as Tyler effortlessly swung up onto his horse. Mrs. Callahan gave her a knowing look, and easy on the eyes, if you don't mind me saying so. Amelia felt heat rise to her cheeks. "I hadn't noticed," she lied. The older woman chuckled. "Course not, dear, must be the fever coming back." That evening, Tyler returned to the cabin to find Amelia seated at the small table in the main room, a blanket around her shoulders despite the warm evening. "Should you be up?" he asked, hanging his hat on a peg by the door. Mrs. Callahan said moving around a little would be good for me, Amelia replied. "I thought perhaps I could help prepare supper. I don't want to be completely useless." Tyler raised an eyebrow. "You're healing from a gunshot wound. No one expects you to be useful right now." "Nevertheless," she insisted, "I'd like to contribute something in return for your hospitality." He studied her for a moment, then nodded. "All right, you can chop these vegetables while I deal with the rabbit." He placed a board with carrots and potatoes in front of her, along with a knife. They worked in comfortable silence for a while, the only sounds the chopping of vegetables and the crackling of the fire in the stove. Amelia found herself stealing glances at Tyler as he worked, admiring the sure movements of his hands and the concentration in his expression. "You said you came west after the war," she ventured finally. "Which side did you fight for?" Tyler paused briefly. "Union, 8th Kansas Infantry, you." "My father supported the Union cause, though he was too old to fight. We lived in Boston. Long way from Boston to Oklahoma Territory." Amelia nodded, her knife slowing. "After my parents died last winter, there wasn't much left for me there. Teaching positions are scarce in the East, but out here." She shrugged. "I thought it might be a place to start fresh, with outlaws and rattlesnakes and all manner of danger." Tyler asked, a hint of amusement in his voice. "I didn't expect it to be easy," she countered. "But I didn't anticipate being shot and robbed my first day in the territory either." Tyler's expression sobered. "I'm sorry that happened to you. It wasn't your fault. Still." He added the rabbit to the pot, then took the vegetables she'd chopped. "Most folks come out here with big dreams and find the reality a bitter disappointment. And you?" Amelia asked. "Have you found disappointment?" Tyler considered the question as he stirred the pot. "Not disappointment, no. The land can be harsh, but it's honest. You get back what you put in most times." He glanced at her. "What about you? Ready to head back east at the first opportunity?" Amelia thought about it. Despite her traumatic introduction to the territory, she wasn't ready to give up. "I came here for a reason. One setback, even a serious one, isn't going to change my mind." A smile tugged at the corner of Tyler's mouth. "You've got grit, Miss Anderson. That'll serve you well out here." The stew simmered, filling the cabin with savory aromas. As they ate, Amelia learned more about Tyler's life on the ranch, the challenges of raising cattle in the sometimes unforgiving climate, his hopes to expand his operation, and the community of ranchers and farmers that had formed in the area. "It sounds like you've built a good life," she observed. Tyler nodded, but there was a hint of something loneliness, perhaps, in his eyes. It's a living. Sometimes I wonder if my sister isn't right, though. About finding a wife, Amelia asked before she could stop herself. He looked up, surprised by her directness, and she immediately regretted the question. I apologize, she said quickly. That was too personal. No, it's a fair question. Tyler pushed his empty bowl aside. Yes, about finding a wife. This isn't an easy place for a woman, though. Most who come out here looking for husbands end up disappointed with the reality of frontier life. Perhaps you've just not met the right woman, Amelia suggested, someone who doesn't fear hard work and isolation. Their eyes met across the table, and something unspoken passed between them, a moment of recognition, perhaps, of kindred spirits. Then Tyler stood abruptly, breaking the connection. You should rest. You've been up too long already. Amelia felt the loss of the moment keenly, but nodded in agreement. The pain in her side had intensified, and fatigue was settling over her like a heavy blanket. As Tyler helped her back to the bedroom, his hand supporting her elbow, she was acutely aware of his proximity, of the strength in his gentle grip. At the doorway, she paused and looked up at him. Thank you again, Mr. Wyatt, not just for saving my life, but for your kindness since. His blue eyes softened. Tyler, he said, if you're going to be staying under my roof for a while, you might as well call me Tyler. Tyler, she repeated, testing the name. Then you must call me Amelia. He nodded once, a small smile playing at his lips. Good night, Amelia. Good night, Tyler. As she settled into bed, Amelia found herself thinking about the man whose home she was sharing. He was different from the men she'd known in Boston, less polished, perhaps, but with an honesty and directness she found refreshing. And there was something else about him, something in the quiet strength of his character and the gentleness of his hands that stirred feelings she hadn't expected. She reminded herself firmly that her stay here was temporary. Soon, she would be well enough to take up her teaching position in Oklahoma City, and Tyler Wyatt would return to his solitary life on the ranch. Whatever connection she felt forming between them was likely just gratitude on her part and kindness on his. But as sleep claimed her, she couldn't help wondering what might have happened if they had met under different circumstances, not as rescuer and victim, but as simply a man and a woman, free to explore the unmistakable spark that had flashed between them over the supper table. The days passed with increasing ease as Amelia grew stronger. A week after the attack, she was able to move around the cabin without assistance, though she tired quickly. Tyler brought her some clothing that Mrs. Callahan had altered simple skirts and blouses left by his sister on her last visit to replace her ruined traveling outfit. One afternoon, Amelia sat on the small porch, a book in her lap, watching as Tyler worked with a young horse in the corral. The animal was spirited but not mean, tossing its head and dancing sideways as Tyler patiently introduced it to the saddle. There was something mesmerizing about the way man and horse communicated. Tyler's voice a low, steady murmur that carried across the yard, his movements deliberate and calm. She was so absorbed in watching that she didn't notice one of the ranch hands approach until he cleared his throat. Afternoon, Miss Anderson. Feeling better today? It was Charlie, the youngest of Tyler's workers, a freckle-faced young man barely out of his teens. Much better, thank you, she replied, marking her place in the book. Mr. Wyatt seems to have a way with horses. Charlie nodded enthusiastically. Best horse breaker in the territory, madam. That colt there threw 3 different men before the owner brought him to Mr. Wyatt as a last resort before shooting him. Amelia watched as Tyler finally swung into the saddle. The horse bucked once, then settled, seeming to accept the inevitable. He's patient, she observed. Most men would try to break the horse's spirit by force. That's not Mr. Wyatt's way, Charlie said. Says a horse that works with you willingly is worth 10 that obey out of fear. The wisdom of this philosophy struck Amelia as profoundly true. It spoke to Tyler's character, his strength tempered by compassion, his firmness by fairness. Later, as the sun began to set, Tyler joined her on the porch, wiping sweat from his brow with a bandana. That was impressive, Amelia said, nodding toward the corral where the young horse now stood calmly. Tyler shrugged. He's a good animal, just needed to understand what was being asked of him. Charlie says you're the best horse breaker in the territory. A hint of embarrassment crossed Tyler's face. Charlie exaggerates, I just have more patience than most. It's a rare quality, Amelia said softly. Patience. Tyler studied her for a moment, then changed the subject. How are you feeling today? Better. The pain is manageable now. She hesitated. I was thinking I might try to ride into town tomorrow. Let the school board know I'll be ready to start teaching soon. A frown creased Tyler's brow. It's too soon for you to be riding that distance. I can't impose on your hospitality indefinitely, Amelia protested. You've already done more than enough. It's not an imposition. Tyler's voice was firm. And the doctor was clear 2 weeks minimum before any strenuous activity. Riding 15 miles to town qualifies as strenuous. Amelia wanted to argue but knew he was right. The wound in her side was healing well, but a long ride would undoubtedly set back her recovery. I just feel useless, she admitted. Sitting here all day while you and your men work. Tyler's expression softened. If you're that determined to be useful, there are things you could do around the cabin. The accounts need organizing. I'm not much for paperwork. And if you're up to it, the men wouldn't object to someone else taking a turn at the cook stove. Amelia brightened at the suggestion. I would be happy to help with both. The next morning, she found Tyler's account book spread across the table, a disorganized collection of receipts, invoices, and hastily scrawled notes. She set to work, creating a proper ledger system that would track expenses, income, and inventory. The task was absorbing, and she was surprised when Tyler returned for the midday meal. You've been busy, he observed, looking over her neat columns of figures. Your record-keeping needed attention, she replied, unable to keep a touch of schoolteacher primness from her voice. Tyler's mouth quirked in amusement. I never claimed to be good with numbers. Well, you're doing better than you thought, Amelia said, showing him the bottom line. According to my calculations, your operation is quite profitable. If these trends continue, you could expand considerably next year. A look of genuine surprise crossed Tyler's face. Is that right? Numbers don't lie, Mr. Wyatt. Tyler, he reminded her. Tyler, she corrected, a small smile playing at her lips. That afternoon, true to her word, Amelia took over cooking duties. By the time the men returned from the fields, she had prepared a hearty stew, cornbread, and apple cobbler for dessert, the latter made with dried apples she'd found in the pantry. The reaction from the ranch hands was nothing short of jubilant. Charlie declared it the best meal he'd had since leaving his mother's home, and even the taciturn foreman, Davis, gave a gruff compliment. Tyler said little during the meal, but his appreciative glances toward Amelia spoke volumes. After the men had gone to their bunkhouse, he helped her clear the table. You didn't have to go to such trouble, he said, washing the dishes while she dried. It was no trouble. I enjoyed it. She placed a plate in the cupboard. When you live alone, cooking hardly seems worth the effort. It's nice to prepare food for appreciative eaters. Well, you've won the undying loyalty of my crew. They've been suffering through my cooking for years. Amelia laughed. Is that why you hired Mrs. Callahan to come by? Partly, Tyler admitted, though she mostly does the washing and mending. Things I'm particularly bad at. A bachelor's life has its limitations, Amelia observed, then immediately wished she hadn't when a shadow crossed Tyler's face. Yes, it does, he agreed quietly. They finished the dishes in silence, but it wasn't uncomfortable, rather, it was the easy quiet of two people growing accustomed to each other's presence. As the days passed, they fell into a routine. Amelia took over the household duties she was able to manage with her healing wound, while Tyler attended to the ranch. In the evenings, they would sit on the porch or by the fire, talking of their lives before they'd met, or sometimes simply enjoying companionable silence. Amelia learned that Tyler had grown up in Illinois, the son of a blacksmith. He joined the Union Army at 18 and seen the worst of the war before returning home to find his father dead and the family business sold to pay debts. With nothing to keep him there, he'd headed west, working on various ranches before saving enough to buy his own small spread. In turn, she told him of her life in Boston, her father's position as a professor at Harvard. her mother's involvement in the abolitionist movement, and her own education at a progressive women's college. She spoke of their deaths from influenza and her subsequent decision to seek a new life in the West. "You must find Oklahoma Territory quite primitive after Boston," Tyler remarked one evening as they sat on the porch, watching lightning flicker on the distant horizon. "Different," Amelia corrected. "Not primitive. There's a directness here I find refreshing. In Boston, everything is layered in social conventions and unspoken rules. We have our own conventions out here. Yes, but they're simpler. Be honest, work hard, help your neighbors." She looked at him. "At least that's what I've observed from you." Tyler seemed uncomfortable with the implied compliment. "Most folks out here are just trying to survive. It brings out the best in some, the worst in others." "Like those outlaws," Amelia said softly. Tyler nodded. "Marshal Benton stopped by while you were resting yesterday. They've identified the gang, the Hardin brothers and their crew. They've been raiding along the border for months." Amelia shivered despite the warm evening. "Have they caught them?" "Not yet, but there's a sizable bounty on them now. Somebody will turn them in eventually. That's how it usually goes with outlaws. Loyalty only lasts until the reward gets high enough." Amelia wrapped her arms around herself, suddenly aware of how vulnerable she still was. The men who had shot her were still out there, still free. Tyler noticed her discomfort. "You're safe here," he said quietly. "I won't let anything happen to you." She met his gaze, struck by the conviction in his voice. "I believe you." Something shifted between them in that moment, an acknowledgement of feelings growing beyond mere gratitude or obligation. But neither was ready to put it into words. The storm that had been threatening finally broke, sending them hurrying inside as fat raindrops began to fall. They stood just inside the doorway, watching as the sky opened up and water poured down in sheets. "We needed this rain," Tyler said, closing the door. "The pastures were getting dry," but Amelia barely heard him. Standing this close, she was acutely aware of his presence, the clean scent of soap and leather that clung to him, the way his shirt stretched across his shoulders, the curl of hair at the nape of his neck that had escaped his earlier washing. When he turned and found her watching him, something flickered in his eyes: awareness, desire, uncertainty. For a heartbeat, she thought he might step closer, might bridge the gap between them. Instead, he cleared his throat and moved away. "We should turn in. Morning comes early on a ranch." Amelia nodded, ignoring the pang of disappointment. "Good night, Tyler." "Good night, Amelia." As she lay in bed listening to the rain drum on the roof, Amelia confronted the truth she'd been avoiding. She was falling in love with Tyler Wyatt. The realization was both exhilarating and terrifying. 2 weeks ago, she had been on her way to start a new life as a schoolteacher in Oklahoma City. Now, she was recuperating in a rancher's cabin, contemplating feelings that complicated everything. She still intended to take the teaching position. It was the reason she had come west, after all. But the thought of leaving the ranch, of leaving Tyler, filled her with an unexpected sadness. And yet, what alternative was there? She couldn't simply invite herself to stay, and Tyler had given no indication that he wanted anything more than their current arrangement. Outside, the storm raged on, mirroring the tumult in Amelia's heart. Eventually, exhausted by her thoughts, she drifted into a fitful sleep. She woke to bright sunshine and the smell of coffee. The storm had passed, leaving the world washed clean and glistening. When she emerged from the bedroom, she found Tyler at the stove, frying bacon. "Morning," he greeted her. "Thought I'd let you sleep in. You were restless last night, heard you moving around." Amelia smoothed her hair self-consciously. "The storm kept me awake," Tyler nodded, not pressing further. "How's the side feeling today?" She touched the wound, which had faded to a dull ache. "Much better. I think I could try riding today if it's not too far." Tyler turned from the stove, concern evident in his expression. "Are you sure that's wise?" "I need to start regaining my strength sometime," she pointed out. "And I'd like to see more of your ranch than just the view from the porch." After breakfast, Tyler saddled a gentle mare for Amelia and helped her mount, his hands lingering at her waist perhaps a moment longer than necessary. They rode at a leisurely pace, Tyler pointing out features of his property, the creek that provided water for the cattle, the stand of trees that offered shelter during winter storms, the fields where he grew hay for feed. Amelia was struck by the pride in his voice as he talked about the land. This wasn't just a business to him, it was a home, a life he'd built from nothing. They stopped to rest on a small hill overlooking the ranch buildings. From this vantage point, Amelia could see the full scope of Tyler's operation: the main house, the bunkhouse, the barn, and corrals, all surrounded by rolling pastures dotted with cattle. "It's beautiful," she said sincerely. "You've created something wonderful here." Tyler gazed out over his domain, a mixture of pride and something like longing in his expression. "It's a good start, but there's more I want to do: expand the herd, improve the bloodlines, maybe plant some wheat on the north section." "You have vision," Amelia observed. "Not just for what is, but for what could be." He looked at her, his blue eyes intense. "Isn't that why we all came west, for the possibility?" "Yes," she agreed softly, "the possibility." They rode back in comfortable silence, each lost in their own thoughts. As they neared the ranch, Amelia noticed a wagon approaching from the direction of town. "Are you expecting visitors?" she asked. Tyler squinted against the sun. "That's Dr. Simmons, probably coming to check on you." They reached the ranch just as the doctor's wagon pulled up. Dr. Simmons, a white-haired man with kind eyes and a perpetually worried expression, climbed down with his medical bag. "Miss Anderson," he greeted her. "Good to see you up and about, and riding, no less." "Just a short distance," she assured him. "Well, let's have a look at that wound and see how you're healing." In the privacy of the bedroom, Dr. Simmons examined Amelia thoroughly, nodding in approval as he rebandaged her side. "You're making excellent progress," he told her. "The wound is clean, no sign of infection. Another week and you'll be fit for light duties." "What about traveling to Oklahoma City?" Amelia asked. "I need to speak with the school board about starting my position." The doctor hesitated. "A stagecoach journey is rough, even for someone in perfect health. I'd recommend waiting at least another 2 weeks before attempting it." Amelia's heart sank. She had already delayed her arrival significantly. "Will they hold the position that long?" "I believe so," Dr. Simmons said, packing away his instruments. "The board chairman, Mr. Peterson, specifically asked after you when I saw him yesterday, said they're prepared to wait until you're fully recovered." Relief washed over her. "That's very kind of them. Well, teachers are in short supply out here. And your credentials from back east impressed them considerably." The doctor gave her a shrewd look. "Though if you don't mind my saying so, you seem to have landed in a rather favorable situation here." Amelia felt her cheeks warm. "Mr. Wyatt has been very hospitable." The doctor hummed noncommittally. "Tyler Wyatt is one of the finest men in the territory. Many a young lady from hereabouts has set her cap for him, but he's shown no interest." He closed his bag with a snap. "Until now, perhaps." "Dr. Simmons," Amelia protested, flustered by his directness. The doctor merely chuckled. "Just an old man's observation, my dear. Pay me no mind." When they returned to the main room, Tyler was waiting anxiously. "Well, Doc, how is she?" "Healing nicely," Dr. Simmons reported. "Another week of rest, then she can gradually resume normal activities. I'd recommend staying close to home for at least 2 more weeks before attempting the journey to Oklahoma City." Tyler nodded, relief evident in his expression. "She's welcome to stay as long as needed." After the doctor departed, an awkward silence fell between them. The mention of Oklahoma City had brought reality crashing back, the reality that Amelia's time at the ranch was limited, that soon she would leave to take up her teaching position. "I should get supper started," Amelia said, needing something to do with her hands, her thoughts. "I'll help," Tyler offered, following her to the kitchen. As they worked side by side, Amelia found herself hyper-aware of every accidental brush of their hands, every shared glance. The easy camaraderie of the morning ride had been replaced by a tension thick enough to cut. Finally, Tyler broke the silence. "You don't have to go, you know." Amelia's hand stilled, a potato half peeled in her grip. "What do you mean?" Tyler seemed to struggle with his words. "To Oklahoma City you could stay here if you wanted." Her heart thundered in her chest. "As what?" "As." He faltered, then straightened his shoulders, meeting her gaze directly. As my wife, if you'd consider it. The potato slipped from Amelia's fingers, landing with a thud on the table. Your wife, she repeated, hardly daring to believe she'd heard correctly. Tyler's cheeks flushed with color, but he didn't look away. I know it's sudden. We've only known each other a short time, and I'm not much of a catch compared to the men you probably knew back east, but I care for you, Amelia, more than I thought possible. Amelia stared at him, her mind whirling. Tyler, you don't have to answer now, he said quickly. I understand if you need time to think, or if the answer is no. The teaching position is still yours either way. He ran a hand through his hair in frustration. I just couldn't let you go without saying something. Amelia took a step toward him, then another, until she stood directly before him. Slowly, she raised a hand to touch his cheek. It is sudden, she agreed softly, but these past 2 weeks I've come to know you in ways that might take months or years under ordinary circumstances. Hope flickered in Tyler's eyes. And I care for you too, she admitted. Very much, but marriage, that's a lifetime commitment. I wouldn't want anything less, Tyler said, covering her hand with his own. I'm not asking because you need a place to stay or because it's convenient. I'm asking because in 2 short weeks you've become essential to me, the thought of you leaving. He shook his head. I don't want to go back to the way things were before you came. Tears pricked at Amelia's eyes. I don't think I could either. Tyler's arm slipped around her waist, careful of her healing wound. Then stay. Be my wife. We'll build something here together, something better than either of us could create alone. Amelia looked up into his face, the face that had become so dear to her in such a short time. She saw honesty there and hope and a love that mirrored her own growing feelings. Yes, she whispered, her decision crystallizing with the word. Yes, I'll stay. I'll be your wife. The smile that broke across Tyler's face was like the sun emerging from clouds. He bent his head slowly, giving her time to pull away if she wished. But Amelia rose on her tiptoes instead, meeting him halfway in a kiss that sealed their promise to each other. It was gentle at first, mindful of her injury and the newness between them. But as Amelia's arms wound around Tyler's neck, the kiss deepened, expressing all the unspoken longing that had been building since the moment he'd found her wounded and alone on the prairie. When they finally parted, both breathless, Tyler rested his forehead against hers. I thought I might have to be more persuasive, he said with a smile in his voice. Amelia laughed softly. Perhaps I'm more decisive than you gave me credit for. One of many things I'm learning about you. He brushed a strand of hair from her face. And I look forward to discovering all the rest over the years to come. The forgotten meal preparations lay abandoned on the table as they sat together, making plans for their shared future. Amelia would write to the school board, declining the position with regret. They would be married as soon as she was fully recovered, a simple ceremony with the ranch hands as witnesses and perhaps a small celebration afterward. What about your sister? Amelia asked. Won't she want to attend the wedding? Tyler chuckled. Sarah will be beside herself with joy. She's been trying to marry me off for years. His expression grew more serious. But she lives in St. Louis with her husband and children. It would take weeks for them to get here. Then we'll visit them later, Amelia decided, once we're settled. As evening fell, their conversation turned to practical matters, the running of the ranch, the changes that would come with Amelia as mistress of the household, their hopes for the future. I never thought I'd find someone like you here, Amelia admitted as they sat before the fire, her head resting on Tyler's shoulder. Someone who understands both the world I came from and the one I've chosen. Tyler's arm tightened around her. I never thought I'd find someone at all, he said quietly. Most women take one look at this hard country and run the other direction. Not me, Amelia said, lifting her head to meet his gaze. I came west looking for a new beginning. I just didn't know it would look like this. Tyler's kiss was a promise in the firelight. Neither did I, but I'm grateful for it nonetheless. Later that night, as Amelia prepared for bed, she caught her reflection in the small mirror hanging on the bedroom wall. The woman who looked back at her was changed from the one who had boarded the stagecoach in Boston, not just physically. With the color returned to her cheeks and a new confidence in her bearing, but in deeper ways that showed in her eyes. She had come west seeking independence, a chance to build a life on her own terms. Instead, she had found partnership, a sharing of strengths and dreams with a man who saw her as an equal. It wasn't the future she had planned, but as she slipped into the bed that would soon be theirs together, she knew with absolute certainty that it was the future she wanted. Outside her window, the vast Oklahoma sky was strewn with stars, brilliant in the clear night air. Somewhere in that enormous darkness, the men who had attacked her stagecoach were still at large. But Amelia no longer felt fear when she thought of them. They had changed the course of her life, certainly, but not in the way they had intended. Their violence had ultimately led her to love, to Tyler, to home. As she drifted toward sleep, Amelia silently thanked whatever twist of fate had brought her to this moment. From the ashes of tragedy had risen something beautiful and unexpected, a love as vast and promising as the western horizon. The following days passed in a blur of happiness and preparation. Word spread quickly about their engagement, first among the ranch hands, who offered hearty congratulations, then to neighboring ranches, and finally to Oklahoma City via Dr. Simmons, who couldn't contain his pleasure at having predicted the match. Amelia wrote a gracious letter to the school board, explaining her change in circumstances and recommending they contact the teaching college in St. Louis for another candidate. Tyler sent a telegram to his sister, whose reply came back within days. Overjoyed, stop about time, stop will visit when possible, stop welcome to family Amelia, stop. 10 days after Tyler's proposal, with Amelia's wound nearly healed, they rode into Oklahoma City together to make official arrangements. The small frontier town was bustling with activity, freight wagons loaded with supplies, cowboys fresh off the trail spending their wages in the saloons, settlers arriving with hope in their eyes and determination in their hearts. Their first stop was the church, where they arranged with the minister to perform the ceremony the following Saturday. Next came the general store, where Amelia selected fabric for a wedding dress that Mrs. Callahan had offered to help sew. As they crossed the dusty Main Street toward the land office, where Tyler needed to file some paperwork, a commotion erupted from the direction of the sheriff's office. People began running and shouts filled the air. "Stay here," Tyler instructed, helping Amelia to the boardwalk before stepping into the street to see what was happening. A young deputy came running past. "The Harden gang," he called out. "They've been spotted heading this way." Tyler was back at Amelia's side in an instant. "We need to get out of town," he said urgently, his hand moving instinctively to the revolver at his hip. Amelia's heart raced, memories of the attack flooding back. "Are you sure it's them? Can't take the chance." Tyler scanned the street, calculating. "Our horses are at the livery on the other side of town." Before they could move, gunshots rang out from the direction of the bank. People scattered, diving for cover as riders burst into the main street, guns blazing. There were 5 of them, faces partially covered by bandanas, shooting indiscriminately to create panic. Tyler pulled Amelia into the recessed doorway of the land office, shielding her with his body. "Stay down," he ordered, drawing his revolver. From their position, Amelia could see the marshal's office, where Benton and his deputies were returning fire. One of the outlaws fell from his horse, but the others continued their chaotic charge down the street. "It's a diversion," Tyler muttered. The bank, as if confirming his suspicion, more gunfire erupted from inside the bank building. Moments later, 2 more riders emerged, saddlebags bulging. "Let's go," one of them shouted, a voice that sent ice through Amelia's veins. She knew that voice. "It's him," she whispered, clutching Tyler's arm. "The leader, the one who shot me." Tyler's jaw tightened as he watched the outlaws regroup and begin their escape. Marshal Benton and several armed townsmen were in pursuit, but the gang had the advantage of surprise and superior horses. As the dust settled, Amelia and Tyler emerged cautiously from their shelter. The street was in chaos, women crying, men shouting, a body lying motionless in front of the bank. "Are you all right?" Tyler asked, his eyes searching her face. Amelia nodded, though her hands were shaking. "Yes." "But I recognized him, Tyler. It was the same gang." They made their way to the marshal's office where Deputy Collins was organizing a posse to pursue the outlaws. Marshal Benton had already ridden out with several men. "Wyatt," Collins acknowledged Tyler, "you see which way they headed." "North toward the river crossing," Tyler replied. Miss Anderson recognized them, same gang that hit the stagecoach she was on. Collins's eyes sharpened. "You sure, madam?" "Positive," Amelia said firmly. "The leader, his voice, his palomino with the white blaze, it was the same man who shot me." "That's Jack Harden," Collins confirmed grimly. "His brother Will was the one we shot. First time they've hit a town this size, must be getting desperate, or confident," Tyler suggested. "How much did they get?" "Payroll for the railroad workers nearly $5,000. Collins shook his head. "Benton will catch them. He knows this territory better than they do." But when they returned to the ranch that evening, having completed their errands and collected their purchases, news had already spread that the Harden gang had escaped the posse, disappearing into the rough country along the river. "They'll be back," Davis, Tyler's foreman, predicted as they discussed the events over supper. "Men like that, they get away with something once, they'll try again." Tyler's expression was grim. "Next time they might not be so lucky." That night, as they sat on the porch watching the fireflies dance in the gathering darkness, Amelia sensed Tyler's distraction. "What's troubling you?" she asked softly. He was silent for a long moment. "Seeing those men today, knowing they're the ones who nearly killed you. It brought it all back, how close I came to losing you before I ever found you." Amelia took his hand, twining their fingers together. "But you did find me, and I'm still here." "I know," he squeezed her hand, "but they're still out there. And now they've seen you in town, seen you with me." Understanding dawned. "You think they recognized me, that they might come after me?" Tyler turned to face her, his expression deadly serious. "Men like the Hardens don't leave witnesses if they can help it. The fact that you survived and could identify them makes you a threat." Fear flickered in Amelia's chest, but she refused to let it take hold. "What do? "We get married as planned," Tyler said firmly. "But we'll be careful. I've asked Davis to keep extra men around the ranch until the Hardens are caught." Amelia nodded, drawing strength from Tyler's calm resolve. "They won't take this from us," she said with determination. "Whatever life we build together, it won't be shaped by fear." Tyler's eyes softened as he looked at her. "No, it won't, that's a promise." He sealed it with a kiss, tender at first, then deepening with a fierce protectiveness that made Amelia's heart race for entirely different reasons than fear. When they finally parted, both breathless, Tyler rested his forehead against hers. "5 more days," he murmured. "5 days until you're my wife." "I can't wait," Amelia whispered back, meaning it with all her heart. The wedding preparations continued despite the shadow cast by the Harden gang's attack on the town. Mrs. Callahan arrived daily to help with Amelia's dress, a simple but elegant creation of ivory silk with delicate lace at the collar and cuffs. Tyler busied himself with readying the cabin for his bride, adding shelves for her books, and enlarging the vegetable garden she had started tending. On the eve of their wedding, a package arrived from Tyler's sister in St. Louis, a beautiful quilted bedspread, and a letter full of warm wishes and thinly veiled instructions to Tyler to treat her right or answer to me. "Your sister sounds formidable," Amelia remarked, smiling as Tyler read the letter aloud. "Sarah's been mothering me since our parents died," he admitted. "She'll adore you." "I hope so," Amelia said, suddenly nervous at the thought of family she had yet to meet. Tyler set the letter aside and took her hands in his. "They'll love you because I love you," he said simply. It was the first time he had spoken the words, though his actions had demonstrated the feeling 100 times over. Amelia's heart swelled with joy. "I love you too," she replied, the words feeling both momentous and completely natural. "So much." Their wedding day dawned clear and perfect, with a sky so blue it hurt to look at it. Mrs. Callahan arrived early to help Amelia dress, fussing over her hair and insisting she wear the cameo brooch that had been her own mother's, something borrowed. The ceremony was to take place at noon, with a celebration to follow at the ranch. As the hour approached, Amelia stood before the small mirror, hardly recognizing the woman who looked back at her. She looked happy, radiant even, despite the simple surroundings and the hasty arrangements. A knock at the bedroom door preceded Mrs. Callahan's entrance. "It's time, dear." "Are you ready?" Amelia took a deep breath. "Yes, I'm ready." The main room of the cabin had been transformed. Wildflowers filled every available container, their sweet scent perfuming the air. The furniture had been pushed back to create space for the small gathering, the ranch hands in their Sunday best. Dr. Simmons and his wife, Marshall Benton, who had returned empty-handed from pursuing the Hardens, and a few neighbors from surrounding ranches. And there, waiting beside the minister, was Tyler. He wore a new black suit that emphasized his broad shoulders, his hair neatly combed, his face freshly shaved. But it was the look in his eyes as Amelia entered that took her breath away, a look of such love and wonder that it made her heart stutter in her chest. The ceremony was brief but meaningful, their vows spoken with clear voices and unwavering certainty. When the minister pronounced them husband and wife, Tyler's kiss was gentle but filled with promise, appropriate for their audience but hinting at more to come. The celebration continued into the evening, with food and drink flowing freely, music from Charlie's fiddle, and dancing that grew increasingly boisterous as the night wore on. Tyler and Amelia moved among their guests, accepting congratulations and well wishes, always finding their way back to each other like magnets drawn by an irresistible force. As the party began to wind down, Tyler slipped his arm around his new wife's waist. "Ready to send them home?" He murmured in her ear. Amelia nodded, a delicious anticipation building within her. This would be their first night together as husband and wife, the beginning of their shared life. They stood at the door, thanking their guests as they departed. Marshall Benton was among the last to leave. "Congratulations again," he said, shaking Tyler's hand firmly. "You've got yourself a fine woman." "Don't I know it?" Tyler agreed, his arm tightening around Amelia. The marshal's expression grew serious. "I'll have a deputy ride by tomorrow just to check on things, until we catch the Hardens." Tyler nodded in understanding. "Appreciated, Marshal, but don't worry about us tonight. Davis and the boys are keeping watch." As the last wagon rumbled away, Tyler turned to Amelia with a smile that made her pulse quicken. "Mrs. Wyatt," he said, tasting the new name, "shall we retire?" Without warning, he swept her into his arms, making her laugh in surprise. "Tyler, your back is fine," he assured her, carrying her across the threshold into their home, truly theirs now, not just his. "I've been waiting all day to do this." He set her down gently in their bedroom, which had been transformed as well. Fresh linens covered the bed, now adorned with Sarah's quilt. Candles cast a warm glow over everything, and someone Mrs. Callahan, Amelia suspected, had scattered wildflower petals across the floor. "It's beautiful," Amelia whispered, suddenly shy despite their weeks together in the same small cabin. Tyler stood before her, his eyes never leaving her face as he slowly removed his jacket and vest. "You're beautiful," he corrected, his voice husky with emotion. "My wife, my Amelia." She stepped forward, her fingers working at the buttons of his shirt. "My husband," she replied, the words sending a thrill through her. "My Tyler." Their first night together as husband and wife was everything Amelia had dreamed of, tender and passionate, a joining that felt both new and somehow familiar, as if their souls had known each other long before their bodies met. Afterward, lying in Tyler's arms as the candles burned low, Amelia felt a completeness she had never known possible. "Happy," Tyler murmured against her hair. "Perfectly," she assured him, pressing a kiss to his chest directly over his heart. "Are you?" His arms tightened around her. "More than I ever thought I could be." They drifted to sleep wrapped in each other's embrace, the first sleep of countless nights to come as man and wife, their future stretching before them like the vast Oklahoma prairie, wild and beautiful and full of promise. The first months of their marriage passed in a blur of happiness. Summer gave way to autumn, bringing cooler temperatures and the vibrant colors of turning leaves. The ranch prospered under their joint management, Tyler handling the cattle and land, Amelia keeping the books and gradually modernizing the household. Word came from the marshal in early October that the Hardin gang had been spotted in Indian Territory, moving south toward Texas. The news allowed them to relax their vigilance somewhat, though Tyler still insisted on caution when Amelia traveled to town. As November approached, Amelia began to suspect a change in her condition. Her monthly courses, regular as clockwork since girlhood, had not appeared for 2 months. And there were other signs: a persistent queasiness in the mornings, a tenderness in her breasts, a fatigue that descended by mid-afternoon. She said nothing to Tyler at first, wanting to be certain before sharing such momentous news. But on a crisp November morning, as she emptied her stomach for the 3rd day in a row, she could no longer deny the truth: she was with child. That evening, as they sat before the fire after supper, Amelia gathered her courage. "Tyler," she began, "I have something to tell you." He looked up from the bridle he was mending, his expression immediately concerned. "What is it? Are you feeling unwell?" "Not exactly," she smiled, taking his hands in hers. "I'm going to have a baby, your baby, our baby." Tyler stared at her, the bridle forgotten. "A baby." He repeated as if the word were foreign. "You're sure?" Amelia nodded. "As sure as I can be without the doctor's confirmation, but all the signs are there." A slow smile spread across Tyler's face, growing until it lit his entire countenance. "A baby," he said again, this time with wonder. "We're going to be parents." He pulled her into his arms, holding her as if she were made of the most precious glass. "When?" "I think sometime in May," Amelia calculated. "I'm about 2 months along now." Tyler's hand moved to rest gently on her still flat abdomen. "A child," he whispered. "Our child." The awe in his voice brought tears to Amelia's eyes. "Are you happy?" she asked, though his reaction had already answered her question. "Happy doesn't begin to cover it." He kissed her, tenderly at first, then with growing passion. "I love you, Amelia Wyatt, more each day, doctor." Simmons confirmed the pregnancy the following week, pronouncing Amelia in excellent health and predicting an uncomplicated delivery. "First babies often come late," he warned them. "I'd expect yours in late May or early June." Christmas came, bringing with it a letter from Tyler's sister announcing their intention to visit in the spring, just in time to welcome my new niece or nephew. The holidays were quiet but joyful, their happiness enhanced by the knowledge of the new life growing within Amelia. By February, her condition was obvious, her slender frame now softened by the gentle curve of her expanding womb. Tyler was fascinated by the changes in her body, often laying his hand on her belly to feel the baby's movements, his face lighting up with each kick or roll. "He's strong," Tyler declared one evening as a particularly vigorous movement rippled across Amelia's abdomen. Amelia raised an eyebrow. "You're so certain it's a boy?" Tyler shrugged, a sheepish smile playing at his lips. "Just a feeling." "Well, I think it might be a girl," Amelia countered. "With your eyes and my stubborn chin." "God help us if she has your stubborn chin," Tyler teased, earning a playful swat from his wife. As Amelia's pregnancy progressed, they began preparing in earnest for the baby's arrival. Tyler built a cradle, lovingly crafted from oak with delicate scrollwork along the sides. Amelia sewed tiny garments, laying each completed piece in the chest at the foot of their bed with a sense of growing anticipation. Spring arrived, bringing with it new calves in the pastures and the promise of fresh beginnings. Tyler's sister Sarah arrived in early May with her husband and 2 children, filling the ranch house with noise and laughter. "Look at you," Sarah exclaimed upon seeing Amelia, her hands immediately going to the prominent belly. "You're absolutely glowing." The 2 women formed an instant bond, with Sarah sharing stories of her own pregnancies and childbirth experiences that were both terrifying and reassuring. Her husband, James, and Tyler spent long hours discussing the ranch's operations and potential expansions, while the children, 10-year-old Thomas and 8-year-old Eliza, explored every inch of the property with unbridled enthusiasm. On a warm evening in late May, with the family gathered on the porch after supper, Amelia felt the first twinge of pain low in her back. She dismissed it initially, having experienced similar discomfort in recent weeks. But when it returned, stronger and more insistent, she caught Sarah's eye with a meaningful glance. Sarah immediately understood. "James," she said calmly, "why don't you and Tyler take the children to see the new foal? I believe Amelia and I could use some time to ourselves." The men looked confused for a moment until understanding dawned on Tyler's face. "Is it time?" he asked, his voice tight with concern. Amelia nodded, another pain beginning to build. "I think so." Tyler looked torn between excitement and terror. "Should I get the doctor?" "Not yet," Sarah answered decisively. "First babies take their time. We'll send for him when things progress further." The next hours passed in a blur for Amelia. The pain's contractions, Sarah called them, grew steadily stronger and closer together. Sarah proved an invaluable presence, her calm demeanor and practical experience a comfort in the face of Amelia's growing discomfort. By midnight, it was clear the baby was coming quickly. James rode for doctor. Simmons, while Tyler paced outside the bedroom door, driven from the room by his sister's insistence that men were more hindrance than help at this stage. "But it's my child," he had protested. "And you'll meet him or her soon enough," Sarah had replied firmly. "Now go boil water and stay out of the way." The doctor arrived just as Amelia entered the final, most intense phase of labor. The pain was beyond anything she had imagined, tearing through her in waves that left her gasping and clutching at the sheets. "You're doing wonderfully, doctor," Simmons assured her. "The baby is in perfect position, just a few more pushes." Outside, Tyler could hear his wife's cries, each one like a physical blow. He had faced outlaws, survived the war, endured blizzards and drought without flinching. But this, the knowledge that Amelia was in pain, and he could do nothing to help, was testing the limits of his endurance. Finally, as the first light of dawn crept over the horizon, a new cry filled the air, the indignant wail of a newborn taking its first breath. Tyler froze, his heart pounding in his chest. The bedroom door opened and Sarah appeared, her face tired but radiant. "Come meet your son, brother." Tyler entered the room on unsteady legs. Amelia lay propped against pillows, her face flushed and damp with sweat, but wearing a smile of such profound joy that it took his breath away. And there, cradled in her arms, was a tiny bundle wrapped in a soft blanket. "Tyler," Amelia whispered as he approached, "come see our son." He sat carefully on the edge of the bed, and Amelia shifted the bundle so he could see the baby's face. A shock of dark hair, red-tinged skin, features impossibly small and perfect. As Tyler watched, the baby's eyes opened unfocused, deep blue, remarkably like his own. "He's beautiful," Tyler managed, his voice thick with emotion. "Just like his mother," Amelia laughed softly. "I think he looks like you, actually." Tyler reached out a tentative finger, which the baby immediately grasped with surprising strength. "What shall we call him?" They had discussed names but never settled on a final choice. Now, looking at their son's face, Amelia knew. "William," she said. "After your father." Tyler's eyes met hers, gratitude and love shining in their blue depths. "William it is, William Thomas Wyatt." "A fine name, Doctor." Simmons approved from across the room. "For a fine, healthy boy." The next days were a whirlwind of adjustment as they learned to care for their newborn son. Sarah's experience proved invaluable, guiding Amelia through the mysteries of nursing, soothing a crying infant and stealing sleep in precious intervals between feedings. Tyler took to fatherhood with unexpected ease, his large hands somehow perfectly suited to cradling his tiny son. He spent hours simply watching William sleep, marveling at the miracle they had created together. When Sarah and her family departed 2 weeks later, the house seemed strangely quiet despite the regular cries of the baby. But there was a new rhythm to their days now, a pattern centered around William's needs but still allowing time for the work of the ranch and, in precious stolen moments, for each other. As summer settled over the land, bringing with it the familiar cycle of ranch life, cattle to be moved, hay to be cut, endless tasks that defined their existence, Tyler and Amelia found themselves more content than ever before. Their family was complete, their love deeper and richer for having created a new life together. One evening in late June, with William sleeping peacefully in his cradle beside their bed, Tyler held Amelia close, his cheek resting against her hair. "Do you ever think about it?" he asked softly. "How different things might have been if I hadn't ridden that way that day, if I hadn't found you." Amelia shivered slightly at the thought. "Sometimes. But then I look at our son, at our life together, and I can't imagine any other path." "When I found you bleeding in the dust," Tyler continued, his voice low, "I was just trying to save a life. I had no idea I was saving my own future happiness." Amelia turned in his arms to face him, her eyes shining in the dim light. "And when those outlaws left me for dead, I thought it was the end. I couldn't have imagined it was actually the beginning." Tyler kissed her then, a kiss full of tenderness and passion and the promise of all the years still to come. Outside their window, the Oklahoma sky spread vast, and star-filled above the land they both loved, the land that had brought them together against all odds. And in his cradle, William Wyatt slept soundly, the living embodiment of their love, a love born of violence and healing, of compassion and courage, of two hearts finding in each other exactly what they needed, precisely when they needed it most. As summer faded into fall, and fall gave way to the crisp chill of winter, the Wyatt family settled into the rhythm of their life together. William grew rapidly, his father's blue eyes brightening with recognition when his parents came into view, his smile revealing two tiny teeth by his 6th month. The ranch prospered under their joint management. Tyler's careful breeding program was producing calves of superior quality, commanding higher prices at market. Amelia's meticulous bookkeeping and business sense ensured they made the most of every opportunity, reinvesting profits to improve their operation. They had hired an additional hand, a young man named Peter who had a particular way with horses, allowing Tyler to spend more time close to home, something he valued increasingly, as he watched his son grow and change almost daily. On a clear December morning, with the first real snow of the winter blanketing the ground, Tyler stood at the window watching Amelia in the yard below. She was showing William the snow, her breath making clouds in the cold air as she laughed at his wide-eyed wonder. The baby, bundled in warm clothing until he resembled a small bear, reached out chubby hands to catch the few lazy flakes still drifting down. The sight filled Tyler's heart with such overwhelming love that for a moment he couldn't move. This was his family, his home, his life more perfect than anything he could have imagined when he'd ridden alone across this same land just a year and a half ago. Later that evening, with William asleep and the cabin warm against the deepening cold outside, Tyler and Amelia sat before the fire, her head resting on his shoulder, his arm around her waist. "I received a letter from the school board today," Amelia said quietly. "They've asked if I would consider teaching a few days each week. They're having trouble keeping teachers." Tyler looked down at her, surprised. "Do you want to?" She was silent for a moment. "I love being William's mother and your wife. The ranch is our home, our future. But there's a part of me that still believes in the importance of education, especially out here." Tyler considered this. It wasn't an unreasonable request. Oklahoma City was growing, and with growth came children who needed schooling. And Amelia had come west to teach, after all a dream interrupted but perhaps not abandoned. "William is still nursing," he pointed out. "You'd have to take him with you." "Mrs. Callahan said she would help," Amelia replied, "and it would only be 2 or 3 days a week, not every day." Tyler turned to face her fully. "If it's what you want, Amelia, I support you. You've never asked me to give up any part of my work for the family. I wouldn't ask you to give up something that matters to you." Relief and gratitude flooded her expression. "You wouldn't mind, truly." "Mind having an educated wife who wants to share her knowledge with the next generation," Tyler smiled. "I'd be a fool to object." Amelia kissed him, her lips warm and eager against his. "Thank you for understanding. We're partners, aren't we?" Tyler's hands settled at her waist, drawing her closer. "In everything." Their kiss deepened, the familiar heat building between them, a heat that had not diminished with marriage or parenthood but had grown richer, more complex, enhanced by the deep bond they now shared. Later, lying wrapped in each other's arms, they discussed the practical aspects of Amelia's new role. Tyler would drive her to town on teaching days, leaving her with William at the schoolhouse before attending to ranch business in town, then collecting them afterward. It will be good for William to see more of the world than just the ranch, Tyler mused, his fingers tracing lazy patterns on Amelia's bare shoulder. Though I can't imagine a better place for him to grow up. Amelia propped herself up on one elbow, studying his face in the dying firelight. You've made a wonderful home here, Tyler, for all of us. We've made it together, he corrected gently. Everything good in my life came after you. January brought heavy snows that limited travel, but by February the roads were clear enough for Amelia to begin her teaching duties. 3 days each week, they made the journey into Oklahoma City, where she taught the younger children while William either slept in a makeshift cradle beside her desk or charmed the older girls who took turns holding him during their own lessons. Tyler found himself unexpectedly proud watching his wife in her element, her natural authority and genuine care for her students evident in every interaction. The children adored her, and the parents in the community quickly came to respect the young teacher who was also a rancher's wife and mother. Spring arrived with its usual burst of new life, calves in the pastures, wildflowers dotting the prairie, and the busy renewal of ranch work after the quieter winter months. William celebrated his first birthday in May, taking his first unassisted steps during the small party they held with neighboring families and the ranch hands. He's going to be running before we know it, Tyler observed as their son tottered across the yard, arms outstretched for balance. And talking, Amelia added, he's trying to say horse already. Life settled into a pleasant pattern, the days full but rewarding. Amelia continued teaching through the spring term, her students showing remarkable progress under her guidance. Tyler expanded the cattle operation, adding a new breeding bull that promised to improve their stock further. In June, a letter arrived from Tyler's sister announcing another visit planned for the fall. Thomas and Eliza talk constantly of their cousin, Sarah wrote. And we're eager to see how much he's grown. But the peaceful rhythm of their life was disrupted in late July when Marshal Benton rode out to the ranch one afternoon, his expression grave. Tyler, he said as he dismounted, nodding briefly to Amelia who stood on the porch with William on her hip. We need to talk. The two men walked toward the barn, their conversation inaudible from the house. Amelia watched anxiously, noting the tension in her husband's shoulders as the marshal spoke. When Tyler returned, his face was grim. Jack Hardin and what's left of his gang have been spotted near the territorial line, he said without preamble. They robbed a bank in Fort Smith last week, killed 2 people. Amelia's arms tightened instinctively around William. You think they're coming back this way? Benton thinks it's possible, Tyler confirmed. They know this territory, used it as a hiding place before. A chill ran through Amelia despite the summer heat. The outlaws who had nearly killed her, who had cast their shadow over the early days of her relationship with Tyler, they were still out there, still dangerous. What do we do? She asked, striving to keep her voice steady. Tyler's eyes were steel. We stay alert. Davis and the men will take turns keeping watch. No one rides alone, especially you and William. Amelia nodded, understanding the seriousness of the situation. The Hardin gang had proven themselves ruthless, willing to kill without hesitation, and she was still a witness who could identify them. That night, after William was asleep, Tyler checked and rechecked his firearms, placing his rifle by the door and his revolver on the table beside their bed. I won't let anything happen to you or William, he promised, his voice low and fierce. Not while I have breath in my body. Amelia believed him, but she also knew the danger was real not just to her but to Tyler as well. The thought of him facing men like the Hardins, men who killed without conscience, filled her with dread. The days that followed were tense, the normal routines of ranch life continuing but underscored by a constant vigilance. Amelia's teaching term had ended for the summer, so she remained at the ranch with William, never far from the house and always with someone nearby. August arrived with relentless heat. the sun baking the prairie and driving man and beast alike to seek shade during the hottest hours. Tyler and his men moved the cattle to pastures closer to the creek, where water and shelter from cottonwood trees provided some relief. It was during this operation, with Tyler and most of the hands occupied a mile from the house, that Amelia spotted the riders approaching from the east. 3 men, riding hard, dust billowing behind them. Her heart hammering in her chest, she grabbed William from his place spot on the porch and hurried inside, securing the door behind her. Through the window, she watched as the riders drew closer, trying to determine if they were a threat or merely visitors. When they were near enough to make out details, Amelia felt a surge of relief. The lead rider was Marshal Benton, accompanied by 2 deputies, not outlaws but lawmen. She opened the door as they reached the yard, William balanced on her hip. "Marshal," she called, "Tyler's out with the cattle." "Is something wrong?" Benton dismounted quickly, his expression both weary and grimly satisfied. "No, madam. In fact, I bring good news. We got them." "The Hardens." Amelia's voice rose in disbelief. "Jack Harden and the last 2 members of his gang," Benton confirmed. "Cornered them at an abandoned homestead near the river yesterday. They didn't surrender easy." He touched a bandage visible at his collar. "But they won't be troubling anyone ever again." The relief that swept through Amelia was so profound her knees nearly buckled. "They're dead." Benton nodded. "All 3. Thought you and Tyler should know right away. Figured you'd sleep easier." Tears pricked at Amelia's eyes as the tension of the past week's tension she hadn't fully acknowledged even to herself suddenly released. "Thank you, Marshal. Thank you for coming to tell us." "Least I could do, madam. You were the one who identified them, helped us know what we were looking for." He shifted uncomfortably, unused to such emotional displays. "I'd best get back to town. Tell Tyler I'll stop by again when I can to give him the details." As the lawman rode away, Amelia sat on the porch steps, William playing contentedly at her feet. The threat that had hung over them since her arrival in Oklahoma territory was finally, definitively gone. The men who had attacked her stagecoach, who had left her for dead, who had indirectly but irrevocably changed the course of her life, they could never harm anyone again. When Tyler returned an hour later, she ran to meet him, the words tumbling out in her eagerness to share the news. His reaction mirrored her own, first disbelief, then profound relief. "It's over," he said, holding her close, William sandwiched between them. "Really over." That night they celebrated quietly, the weight of worry lifted from their shoulders. As they prepared for bed, Tyler watched Amelia move about the room, her movements lighter, her smile more frequent. "What are you thinking?" she asked, catching his gaze in the mirror as she brushed her hair. "I'm thinking," he said slowly, "that I'd like to take you and William to St. Louis. Visit Sarah and her family, maybe stay for a while, see the city." Surprise flashed across Amelia's face. "What about the ranch? Davis can handle things for a few weeks. We've never had a proper trip together, and after everything that's happened." He moved to stand behind her, his hands resting on her shoulders. "Life is short and unpredictable. The Hardens reminded me of that. I don't want to waste a day of the time we have together." Amelia turned to face him, her eyes bright with emotion. "I would love that." "And William should meet his aunt and uncle properly, get to know his cousins." "Then it's settled," Tyler declared. "We'll leave as soon as the arrangements can be made." As they settled into bed, wrapped in each other's arms with the peaceful sound of William's breathing from his crib nearby, Amelia reflected on the journey that had brought them to this moment. From the terror of the stagecoach attack to the joy of their wedding day, from the wonder of William's birth to the relief of knowing the Hardens would never threaten them again, it had been a path neither of them could have foreseen. "Do you ever regret it?" she asked softly. "Finding me that day?" Taking on the responsibility of a wounded stranger, Tyler's arms tightened around her. "Not for a single moment," he said with absolute conviction. "Finding you was the best thing that ever happened to me, Amelia. You and William, you're everything." She snuggled closer, her head resting on his chest where she could hear the steady beat of his heart. "I used to wonder why I survived when the others didn't, why I was spared when they were killed. And now I know," she whispered. "I was meant to find you." We were meant to find each other. Outside their window, the vast Oklahoma sky spread endlessly above the land they called home, stars scattered like diamonds across the velvet darkness. And in that moment, with her husband's arms around her and their sons sleeping peacefully nearby, Amelia knew with absolute certainty that every moment of pain and fear, every joy and triumph had led her exactly where she was meant to be. In the arms of the cowboy who had found her, healed her, and given her not just his heart but a future brighter than any she could have imagined.